The Eletre is a Lotus for a new generation of customers, a Chinese-funded, frantically fast, technologically advanced, large electric luxury hyper SUV that re-establishes almost everything the brand stands for.
Should Lotus be building an electric car or a full EV? Well, the facts are that if it doesn't, it won't survive. And the British brand has spent too much of its 70-year history barely surviving. Time for something different. Time for this, the Lotus Eletre. With this performance SUV, the British brand reinvents itself as an electric performance car maker, in the process leapfrogging more exalted rivals, Ferrari and Aston Martin, both yet to take that final step. It's all a far cry from the Lotus of just a few years ago, a cottage British brand hand-building lightweight little sports cars for the few that wanted them. The company's acquisition by Chinese giant Geely in 2017 changed all that. Now, Lotus is so well funded that its boss, Matt Hindle, has been poached from Tesla, and it has a dedicated Lotus Technology Centre in Coventry for the creation of lifestyle cars, of which the Eletre was the first. Impressively, instead of merely borrowing a platform from fellow Geely brands Volvo and Polestar, Lotus has created its own, the electric premium architecture, also used, along with much of this car's engineering, for a fastback GT model, the Evija. Both are very much global products, and the Eletre is easily the brand's best seller, up to 50,000 examples produced every year from the Wuhan plant. Yes, it's Chinese-made. Virtually nothing Lotus now hails from Norfolk. It's an international brand now. As well as the Coventry base, Geely's also funded a technical development centre in Germany and a marketing operation in London. It's all a long way from the flat fields of Hethel, where Colin Chapman founded the marque in East Anglia back in 1948. Since this car was launched in 2023, there's been endless speculation about what the great man might have thought today of a 2.5-tonne D-segment luxury electric SUV bearing his company's name. But as the DeLorean fiasco showed, Chapman was a pragmatist, and he'd have seen the importance this car has in the whole new world that Geely now envisions for Lotus. So, would you want to be a part of it? Well, to find out, as usual, you're going to need the industry's most complete review, the Car and Driving Road Test. To drive, this car obviously can't be like any kind of Lotus we've ever known before. There's 2.6 tonnes of Chinese real estate to waft around, after all. But Lotus R&D chief Gavin Kershaw and his team were given the unenviable task of trying to make it Lotus-like. Have they succeeded? Well, yes and no. There's no doubt that this car struggles to hide its prodigious weight, but there's clever engineering, a 3-in-1 electric motor system integrating motor, controller and reducer into one package, and the steering's more feelsome than with rivals, so the Eletre inspires more confidence through the corners, where you can't help but be impressed by the astonishing grip from the combination of dual motor, all-wheel drive, integrated chassis control and Pirelli P0 rubber. You'll need that confidence too, because this car is frantically fast. Even in its standard Eletre and Eletre S forms, there's 603 brake horsepower, so you'd need the fastest versions of Mercedes, Audi and BMW rivals to keep up. The 62-mile-an-hour sprint is dispatched in 4.5 seconds en route to 160 miles an hour, providing you're not really interested in replicating the claimed 373-mile driving range figure. If that kind of performance is somehow not enough, then there's the top Eletre R variant we're trying here, which replaces the base 450 kilowatt motor and 1-speed EV transmission setup for an uprated Eletre 675 motor with 2-speed transmission, both of which allow for faster acceleration. The result is a wild 905 brake horsepower and 0 to 62 miles an hour in a flaming 2.95 seconds. on the way to 165, only a fraction away from the class-leadingly quick Tesla Model S Plaid we tried earlier this year. Range is claimed at 304 miles. This R variant includes a Lotus dynamic handling pack, optional on the other two models, which includes an active anti-roll system, active rear wheel steering, and an extra track driving mode. The standard drive settings are Tour, Range, Sport, Individual, and Off-Road. These are controlled via a right-hand steering wheel paddle and alter not only throttle response and steering feel, but also responses from the continuous damping control adaptive dampers. Suspension feel, though, is always on the firm side. The drive modes also alter the ride height of the two-chamber air suspension, which lowers itself in Sport and Range as part of the active aerodynamics, but raises in off-road, which also offers an even loftier, highest setting. That, along with the standard hill descent control system, might make surprisingly gnarly tracks passable, provided you were brave enough to attempt them in a six-figure luxury Lotus. A left-hand steering wheel paddle offers 3 levels of regen braking, but even the fiercest of these isn't enough to replicate the abrupt one-pedal off-throttle retardation you get with some rivals. Refinement is up to the expected luxury standards, and there's all the required drive assist tech, including a system of LiDAR sensors that, if fully specified, will allow the car to drive itself when legislation allows it. Thankfully, Lotus hasn't bothered with the washing machine-like fake EV drive sounds you get with this car's competitors, which is perhaps one of the few things Colin Chapman would have approved of with this car. For all that, though, it's quite an achievement. So much is different here, not only the realisation that this is an all-electric Lotus SUV, but also the fact that this car has 5 doors, a big boot, and at 5.1 metres in length. It's vastly bigger than anything the brand has previously made, almost the same size as a Lamborghini Urus. Yet great lengths have been gone to by design chief Ben Payne and his team to give the car a Lotus feel, primarily in the way that the compact bonnet, the short overhangs, and the cab forward stance reference the brand's previous mid-engined design layout. From the side, which isn't the Eletre's most attractive perspective, there are nods to Lotus cars of the present as well. The glass canopy on top of the body references the look of the brand's Evija hypercar. The huge wheels, which vary between 20 and 23 inches in size, aim to visually shrink the silhouette too. We've got 22-inch rims here. And it needs shrinking because, as just mentioned, it's an enormous thing, bigger than a standard length Range Rover and wider than a Mercedes S-Class limo. You can pay extra to replace these conventional door mirrors with digital camera stalks. And there are some curious stylistic touches too, like these triangular open indents ahead of the front doors, which in theory channel air back from the front wheels, but in winter or off-road will partly tend to get clogged up with dirt and grit. More angular open panels embellish the bonnet, a theme continued by these open corner cutouts. The noseline conceals LED matrix headlights, while cooling's taken care of by a latticed low intake above this subtly styled active front spoiler. At the rear, you get this rather unusual 3-piece roof-mounted spoiler, which works in conjunction with a 3-stage deployable one lower down on the tailgate. The outer ears of the upper device look smart and classy. The centre part, housing the car's LiDAR sensors, looks rather like a taxi lamp and doesn't. On this R model, a subtle sliver of carbon fibre trims the midsection of the tailgate, above a tiny ribbon of LED light that flows from side to side into yet more strange open cutouts, through which you can see the tread pattern of the grippy Pirelli P0 tyres. There's a potent-looking rear diffuser too, but annoyingly, no rear wiper. For some reason, the active spoiler systems participate in what Lotus calls this car's welcome show, which also involves interaction from the front and tail lights, as well as the interior screens and ambient lighting. The door handles are of the sort that spring out to meet you and sadly feel flimsy to the touch, but this jewel-like triangular key doesn't, though it's so small that you could easily imagine losing it. Open the door and this Lotus wants to wave its heritage at you. Anthony Colin Bruce Chapman's initialised logo at the corner of the dash, also replicated on a concealed B-pillar panel above the legend "Pioneer since 1948. But is that heritage here more than skin deep? It would be surprising if it was. The usual Lotus minimalist vibe is, after all, difficult to replicate on a six-figure luxury SUV, but there are traces of it in the absence of a conventional instrument binnacle and with this thin, squared-off wheel featuring the usual 12 o'clock marker. To be frank, though, there's much more that would make Colin Chapman wince, even if you didn't know that this was a Chinese-made global product created very much with the Orient in mind. You might guess it by the level of bling on show here. Gold coats the speaker centres, the electric window switches, and the beveled edges of the gear selector and main climate toggles. The button for the box between the seats and the outer circles of the cup holders get a tinselly DS-style guillochage-like finish, and a strip of angular serrated panelling runs across the centre of the dash, arching backwards behind the huge centre screen. You sit high quite commandingly, and a camera on the fascia watches where you're looking and adjusts screen brightness automatically, which is useful if you've paid a lot extra for the side camera system we referenced earlier, which adds little rearward displays at either end of the dash that can become distracting. Glance around the cabin and unusual design touches abound, like these intricately crafted steering wheel paddle shifters, the left one for regen braking settings, the right for drive mode selection. Then there's the climate control toggles that work with colour displays that show on a narrow strip on the vent above, the silver framed pedals, the strange door catches above the door bins, the Eletre centre screen image you can turn around with your finger, and the Art Deco speakers for the 2,160 watt 23 speaker KEF audio system. Whether you like all of this or not, you can't deny that it's been fashioned and assembled with the kind of quality that might be a match for a far more expensive kind of SUV than this. The stitched Napa leather, the real Alcantara headliner, and the little touches like the Bentley-like illuminated sun visor vanity mirrors and cup holder bases that glide up to the surface like lifts at the Ritz. This narrow 12.6-inch driver and co-driver instrument display panel is unusual too, under 30mm tall but surprisingly informative. Ahead of the front seat passenger, it's touch sensitive and shows your audio selection. Ahead of the driver, the screen's conventional and manages to communicate an awful lot without looking overly cluttered. Regen braking level, a digital speedo, range, battery percentage and gear selection. It shows your chosen drive mode too, and in off-road, adds an altimeter and a compass. This R version's added track mode brings up a power meter and G-force stats. Everything you need to know then, but just in case not as standard, there's also an augmented reality head-up display, which projects a 29-inch image that's big enough to clutter up your view ahead quite a lot. The Tesla trend is to do away with instrument displays like this and project key driving info instead on the near side of a supersized central monitor. The Eletre does that as well, once underway, segmenting off the right section of its huge 15.1-inch Hyper OS OLED touchscreen in the centre of the dash with a driving graphic that shows your roadway positioning and surrounding traffic. It's a well-designed monitor with over-the-air updates, 5G connections, Google Earth imagery and the usual wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity. There's a homepage graphic that shows charge, range and date, has small icons along the top and shows key shortcut functions along its bottom frame. Temperature controls, your touch entry to a separate climate screen, flank shortcut touch options into apps, settings and vehicle functions. Settings is your portal into the car's charging menu, and the apps include things like Spotify, Amazon Music, Tidal music and games you might want to play whilst charging up. Here we've got Beach Buggy Racing 2. This screen also has wonderfully detailed graphics to support the various drive modes as well. Yellow-themed Tour, green-themed Range, red-themed Sport, white-themed Individual, a bumpy road graphic for off-road, and an orange circuit theme if you've an R variant with the extra track setting fitted. The colours are useful as a reference for the selected mode out of the corner of your eye as you flip up and down with the right-hand mode selection paddle. Not everything about this screen's great, mind you. There's no shortcut to allow you to quickly cancel off the more intrusive camera drive assist functions, and the navigation system can sometimes plot routes taking in charging stops you never asked it to set. It's a practical cabin, even though there's no glove box. That's compensated for by big door bins and a vast open area beneath the centre console, reminding you of the absence of conventional transmission. The cup holders above are of different sizes. There's a 15-watt wireless charging mat under the central vent, and you get this huge deep storage box between the seats with a stitched lidded leather top that conceals twin USB-C ports and a 12-volt socket. Okay, time to take a look in the back. The electric premium architecture platform that supports both this SUV and its closely related GT fastback Evija showroom stablemate makes possible a lengthy 3019mm wheelbase length, which promises plenty of rear seat space. And so it proves you can really stretch out back here, and because there's no centre tunnel, there's also space for three, provided you specified your Eletre with this conventional rear bench. Two separate chairs are available in an alternative four-seat format for those wanting it. Rear seat bases ready slide in an EV, and these don't either, though the backrests do recline. 4-zone climate control standard, which means you get this little central 8-inch screen back here, which you can also use to change audio settings and seat positioning, and the transparency of the optional panoramic glass roof, if you happen to have specified the intelligent version of it that we have here. It changes from clear to opaque, and aided by these little quarter-light windows, does a great job of lightening the cabin space back here. Not everything's great. As usual with an EV, the cabin floor's higher than it would be in a combustion model, so your knees are slightly raised, and the seat cushions could be better padded. It feels properly premium back here though. Look at these exquisitely crafted door cards, the stylised touch-sensitive overhead lights, and the vents in the B pillars. A smartly trimmed armrest features as well, with a storage compartment, though the cup holders that slide out from its end feel a bit flimsy. The front seat backs have shiny branded centre sections, and there are seat back pockets, and you get coat hooks in the grab handles and on the B pillars. What about luggage space? Well, assuming you've avoided the base model, you get this gesture-controlled, powered tailgate, which opens to reveal a two-piece parcel shelf, the nearest section attached to the beautifully trimmed inside of the tailgate, which includes twin lights that helpfully shine down into the cargo area. The main section of the parcel shelf is solid and can be slid out smoothly via cargo sidewall channels. The space revealed is a reasonably sized 688 litres in this case. That falls to 611 litres if you specify the four-seat format. There's a rather high loading height accessed via an impractically silver-trimmed loading lip, but you can lower that by using these useful right-hand cargo sidewall buttons for the air suspension. A shallow section of underfloor storage is provided, though it isn't big enough for any kind of spare wheel. There are 4 silver tie-downs, a bag hook on the right, a 12-volt socket on the left, and a light on both sides. What, very disappointingly, you don't get are back seat retraction catches, so you've to stretch to the catches on the seat shoulders. If you've a 4-seat model, you won't be able to flatten the rear seats. With this conventional bench, the seat backs split conveniently 40-20-40, so you can fit in longer items like skis in between a couple of rear-seated folk. With everything flat, up to 1,532 litres of space is freed up. There's space up front too, a useful bonnet frunk holding a further 46 litres, enough for the charging leads. So what might a luxury electric Lotus SUV like this cost? Well, quite a lot in the case of the top R model we're trying here, which at the time of this test in summer 2024 was pitched at a cool £120,000. Slightly more accessible are the mainstream Eletre variants. Most will choose the mid-level Eletre S, priced at £104,500 as we filmed, and the base Eletre, for which Lotus wanted £89,500 at the time of this review. Those considering the two mainstream models and wanting a sharper driving feel can pay extra for this R version's Lotus Dynamic Handling Pack. If you'd rather your luxury sporting EV was a Gran Turismo GT than an SUV, remember that Lotus offers its very similarly engineered Evija for much the same kind of money. So the Hethel brand's not afraid to charge premium money for this kind of car, but you could easily find yourself paying more than Eletre model money for similarly powerful and equally configured versions of obvious rivals like the Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo, the Audi SQ8 Sportback e-tron, and faster versions of the BMW iX and the Mercedes EQE SUV. We would also mention the Tesla Model X, but that's only now sold here in left-hand drive. If you're tempted by this Lotus, you'll be pleased to find that it's been generously specified. Unlike the SQ8, the iX and the EQE SUV, the Eletre is based around an 800-volt high-voltage system, which allows access to the latest ultra-fast public DC chargers. And all Eletres have a dual-motor all-wheel drive format with a 450-kilowatt power system for the mainstream models. Plus, there's integrated chassis control, continuous damping control, adaptive dampers, two-chamber air suspension, adaptive cruise control, and 5 drive modes that alter the car's steering, powertrain and suspension parameters. Lotus also includes alloy wheels of at least 20 inches in size, matrix LED headlamps with an adaptive driving beam function, power folding mirrors, all-round parking sensors, keyless entry with a digital key, a package of LiDAR sensors, and a heat pump to draw heat from the surrounding air in cold weather. Inside, there's Nappa leather upholstery with 8-way power-adjustable heated front seats featuring 4-way lumbar support and memory settings. You also get an augmented reality 29-inch head-up display and a 12.6-inch driver and co-driver instrument display panel. Plus, there's full-zone climate control with an 8-inch rear display and an air quality system. You can also tick off a 15-watt wireless phone charging mat and a 360-degree surround view camera, which shows on the 15.1-inch OLED touchscreen in the centre of the dash. A huge monitor fitted with Lotus's Hyper OS operating system for the driver and passengers, pre-prepared for over-the-air updates. 5G data compatibility, online Google Maps navigation, and the usual wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto smartphone mirroring compatibility are also included, along with a KEF premium audio setup. There's an ownership app too, of course, Lotus Connect, which allows you to interact with your Eletre via your smartphone. For the first 6 months of ownership, this will be upgraded to Lotus Connect Prestige, which adds music streaming, access to entertainment apps, and a security system, which will track your Lotus should it be stolen. There's a cost to continue this after the first 6 months is over. All that comes as standard on the base Eletre, but most customers stretch at least a mid-range Eletre S trim, which will mean that this Lotus will come with a few key options already fitted, like an active rear spoiler and a 23-speaker KEF reference audio system with Dolby Atmos tech and a 2,160 watts of sound, the latter optional on the base model. And Eletre S will also come with bigger 22-inch wheels in a diamond cut design featuring lightweight brake discs with 6-piston front calipers. Plus there's premium ambient lighting, a soft closed door system, an auto-dimming rear view mirror and a hands-free power tailgate. If you're determined to stretch to this top Eletre R model, then the key inclusion is the Lotus Dynamic Handling Pack we mentioned earlier, which costs well over £6,000 on the other two models and includes an active anti-roll system and active rear wheel steering. The R gets an uprated Eletre 675 motor with 2-speed transmission and an extra track mode, and is set apart by a carbon fibre pack, which adds that material to the front spoiler, the lower rear diffuser and the side sills. On to options. On the Eletre and the Eletre S, the key one is probably the aforementioned Lotus Dynamic Handling Pack, though on a mainstream model you may prefer to save your money for the Range Optimisation Pack, which for just under £4,000 more gives you an active rear spoiler and replaces the door mirrors with little side camera stalks that project their images onto small screens in each corner of the dash. Or perhaps you might want the glass roof. We've got the intelligent, automatically dimming version of it here, though having the standard aluminium roof does allow you to add roof rails. Less expensively, you could also consider configurable ambient lighting, rear privacy glass, an air quality system and a parking pack that will automatically slot your Eletre into spaces it's previously located for you. You can also add an electrically retracting tow bar, and track folk may want the grippier Pirelli P0 Corsa tyres. There's also a choice of 2 rear seat arrangements, the conventional 3-person bench we've got here, or if you don't mind having rear seats that don't flatten to increase luggage space, there's an option with 2 individual rear chairs. What about aesthetic extras? Well, there are 5 paint shades, you may agree with us, that lighter colours suit this Lotus better than this test car's Caimou Grey. If you don't like the 22-inch wheel design that comes with your chosen trim level, there are various others to choose from, as well as even larger 23-inch alloys, all with a choice of red or green calipers. There's also a 20-inch rim set if you want to maximise range. On the Eletre and the Eletre S, you can embellish the exterior with this R version's carbon pack. For all models, there's an extended carbon pack if you really do have money to burn. And there's a black version of the rear Lotus badge. Depending on how extrovertly coloured you like your interior, there are various interior themes: gold, jasper, quartz, malachite and ruby. And you can add softer semi-aniline leather upholstery, coloured seatbelts, an Alcantara steering wheel, sports pedals, illuminated tread plates and carbon fibre cabin trimming. If you want to future-proof your Eletre, there's the Highway Assist Pack, which uses an advanced 5-fold LiDAR perception system along with a powerful dual Orin X chipset. With the future over-the-air software update, this setup will enable full autonomous driving as soon as UK legislation allows it, analysing the environment around your Lotus as you drive, navigating between obstacles and responding to potential hazards before they can take place. We'll finish with a look at standard safety features. Courtesy of the standard Lotus Pilot Pack of advanced driver aids, there are plenty. Autonomous emergency braking, lane keep assist, traffic sign information, rear collision warning, rear cross-traffic alert, a blind spot assistant, fatigue detection, and what Lotus calls life detection and care, which alerts you if you've left children in the back seat after locking the car. Plus, like all new models these days, you've to have an automatic speed alarm, which in this case doesn't always pick up change of limit signs, so it occasionally admonishes you for limits you're not actually braking. Lotus also includes post-impact braking, plus an anti-rollover program and hill descent control, which works with the off-road drive setting. In addition, there's tyre pressure monitoring and the usual suite of front, side and curtain airbags, plus a far side driver's airbag, all linked to an emergency e-call system. As we've been saying throughout this test, it's all a very different world from the Lotus models we once knew. The very first production Lotus, the Mark VI of 1952, weighed just 431 kilograms. The Elise of 1996 tipped the scales at only 725 kilograms. Of course, this is a D-segment electric luxury EV, further weighed down by modern safety legislation. So completely different standards apply, but nevertheless, it's still somewhat disappointing to find that at well over 2.6 tonnes, the Eletre is nearly as bulky as the weightiest of its direct class rivals, Audi's SQ8 Sportback e-tron. That of course impacts on driving range, though not to the extent you might have feared looking at the curb weight figure. In fact, as long as you're pitching it against similarly performing electric large sports SUVs, the Eletre fares pretty well. The 373-mile figure quoted for the two 603 brake horsepower mainstream variants being about the same as you'd get from a rival Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo Turbo, which means it's around 25 miles ahead of a BMW iX M60 and around 100 miles ahead of comparably performing Teutonic models like that Audi SQ8 e-tron and the Mercedes AMG EQE SUV 53 4MATIC Plus. Even this manic 905 brake horsepower Eletre R is supposed to be able to manage 304 miles between charges if you can resist the temptation to floor it at the horizon. That's some way off the 370 mile figure of a comparable Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo Turbo S. In this segment, Porsche is the only other brand that also offers this Lotus model's advanced electric premium architecture 800-volt platform, which is what you need to support the latest ultra-rapid DC chargers springing up all over Europe. At the time of this test, BMW, Mercedes and the Audi SQ8 e-tron were still stuck on the old 400-volt system with their architecture. The Eletre's big 112 kilowatt-hour battery supports charging speeds of up to 355 kilowatts, which in the unlikely event that you find one of the UK's few 350 kilowatt DC ultra-rapid chargers, would theoretically enable you to replenish the system cells from 10 to 80% in 20 minutes, allowing you to add 74 miles of range in just 5 minutes. At home, full AC charging from a typical 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box would require a lengthy 17 hours, which at the rates prevailing at the time of this test would set you back about £30. A public DC rapid charger would cost around £70 or more, almost as much as filling the tank of a combustion rival with petrol. But of course, with one of those, you wouldn't get this EV's 2% benefit in kind taxation rate or road tax and congestion zone exemptions, though those exemptions seemed likely to be compromised in 2025 at the time of this test. A charging section of the centre screen allows you to set charging limits and maximum current level. And of course, you can set charging times via the provided Lotus app. The charging port has been placed on the front wing, which means electricity coming through to the car will be as close as possible to where it's needed, which cuts down on unnecessary internal cabling and the extra weight that would bring. Old Lotus models were often a watchword for unreliability. Remember the old acronym, lots of trouble, usually serious. But this one will be very different. Just in case though, a 5-year warranty is standard in the UK, and Lotus offers roadside assistance across Europe for 5 years after vehicle purchase. If Lotus, as it was, had somehow created a 6-figure luxury electric SUV, we can't imagine it would have been much like this. But this is now a very different brand, and as you can tell by just looking at an Eletre, this is a very different kind of Lotus, developed with the kind of technology that prior to the Geely takeover, the company could only dream about. Take away the badge work and you'd probably judge this car very differently. There'd be no carping, for instance, as to why a car badged as a Lotus hasn't set fresh lightweight standards in its bloated segment. But that's referencing brand standards that by and large no longer exist and which anyway are unfamiliar to the fresh generation of affluent global customers being targeted here. We'd hoped that some elements of its handling would be more Lotus-like, but that was probably expecting too much from a car weighed down by such a hefty battery and saddled with such enormous hopes from its Chinese investor. Having said that though, it's a more engaging steer than any of its direct rivals. It's frantically fast, interestingly designed, and unlike Lotus models of the past, is beautifully appointed and almost faultlessly built. Enough perhaps then to draw in those who've enjoyed the idea of a Lotus from afar, but have never been able to justify owning one. And perhaps more importantly, to open up the way for a new kind of customer, someone who wants a cool, futuristic kind of sporting brand. Is that what this company now is? Well, the Eletre makes a good case for it.